They said, apologize or be banned from the wedding. That was the moment I realized my family didn't want peace. They wanted obedience. When the text came through, I was at work, adjusting colors on a client's logo. My father's name flashed across the screen. Apologize to your uncle by Friday or don't come to the wedding. I stared at those words, feeling the same quiet rage that had lived in my chest since childhood. I hadn't done anything wrong. Not this time. Not ever, not really. I'm not apologizing for standing up to disrespect, I texted back. His reply came within minutes. Then don't come. And, just like that, I knew if I stayed, I'd suffocate. So, I opened my laptop and booked a one-way ticket to somewhere he couldn't reach me. My name is Grace. I'm 29, a graphic designer, self-employed, self-reliant, and very, very tired. The only child in a traditional family where silence was called respect and obedience was called love. Growing up, my parents' house echoed with rules: don't talk back. Don't question elders. Don't embarrass the family. I learned early that being honest was dangerous. That being myself was defiance. But you can only shrink yourself for so long before something inside you refuses to fold any further. 3 weeks before my sister's wedding, we had one of those big family dinners. The kind that looks perfect on the outside, everyone laughing, the table overflowing, the illusion of love. My uncle made a joke about women at work. One of those tired, mean jokes that hides cruelty behind laughter. Everyone laughed. Everyone but me. That's not funny, I said quietly. The laughter died. You could feel the temperature in the room drop. My uncle frowned. It's a joke. You're too sensitive. Being offended by disrespect isn't sensitivity, I said. It's called having standards. My father's voice cut through the tension. Grace, don't speak to your uncle that way. I'm not being disrespectful, I said. I'm being honest. That was all it took. My mother's face hardened. You embarrassed him in front of everyone. And, just like that, I became the villain. Again. The next morning, my father called me at work. Your mother is upset. You owe your uncle an apology. I'm not apologizing for having boundaries. Then you're not welcome at the wedding. There it was, an ultimatum wrapped in love, polished with guilt. It wasn't about my uncle. It was about control. That evening, I got his message. Apologize by Friday or don't come. I stared at it for a long time. Then I closed my eyes, breathed out, and felt something settle inside me, clarity. My sister called next. Her voice was shaky. Can you please just apologize? You're making everything complicated. It's not just an apology, I said. It means pretending that disrespect is okay. It doesn't have to mean anything. Just do it for peace. There it was again, peace. The kind that always required my silence. If you don't come, she said softly, it'll look like you don't support me. My support shouldn't depend on me abandoning my values, I said. She hung up. By that evening, my mother had started calling again and again. When I didn't answer, the voicemails turned from guilt to anger. Your sister is heartbroken. You're embarrassing us. How could you do this to your family? Then the messages came from everyone else, my aunt, my cousins, even my grandmother crying over the phone. Each one telling me the same thing, just apologize. Not one of them asked what he said. Not one cared why I spoke up. I became the story they told about the ungrateful daughter. The troublemaker. The shame. 3 days before the wedding, my father called one last time. Last chance, he said. Apologize now. I'm not doing it. Then you're no longer part of this family. I froze. You're cutting me off because I won't apologize for having principles? I'm cutting you off because you refuse to respect authority. My mother took the phone, her voice trembling. You've hurt us beyond repair. I hung up. That night, I sat in the dark and realized something simple but shattering. They didn't love me for who I was. They loved the version of me that obeyed. And I was done obeying. So, I made a choice. While they were busy planning centerpieces and seating charts, I planned my escape. For years, I'd been preparing for this moment without even knowing it, building financial independence, working remotely, saving for a trip I hadn't dared to take. I packed a carry-on, grabbed my passport, and booked a one-way ticket to the Maldives. I called my best friend, Priya. I'm doing it. Good, she said. Show them you can survive without their approval. The night before the wedding, my phone buzzed nonstop, calls, messages, emotional blackmail disguised as love. I turned off notifications, zipped my suitcase, and exhaled. At 4:30 a.m., I left for the airport. Before boarding, I typed one last message to the family group chat. I've decided to take time for myself. I'll be unreachable for 2 weeks. When I return, I'd like to discuss boundaries and respect. Grace. I hit send. Then I turned my phone off. As the plane began to rise, I felt something lift inside me too, something I hadn't felt in years. Not regret. Not fear. Freedom. When the wheels left the ground, I didn't cry. I thought I would. I'd imagine tears, maybe even panic. Instead, I felt weightless. Like someone had just unlocked a door I didn't realize I'd been trapped behind. The sky outside the window turned from gray to gold, and I thought, they can't reach me here. Somewhere over the Indian Ocean, I realized I wasn't just running away from the wedding. I was running toward something, peace, maybe. Or the version of myself I'd buried years ago. By the time I landed in the Maldives, the sun was already sinking into the water. The air smelled like salt and something new. I'd never traveled alone before, not really, but when I stepped onto that island, barefoot and free, I didn't feel lost. I checked into a small guest house by the beach, the kind with white curtains that dance with the wind and a staff who smiled without pretending to know my story. The first night, I didn't unpack. I just walked straight to the water. The ocean was warm, the sky bleeding pink and orange. I sat on the sand and let the tide wash over my feet. And then I cried. Not out of sadness, out of release. Years of guilt, fear, and pretending poured out of me in quiet waves. I thought about the dinner, the jokes, the silence that followed. The way my father's voice had turned cold. The way my mother cried, not because I was wrong, but because I had disobeyed. All those years I thought love meant sacrifice. That peace was worth my silence. But peace built on suppression isn't peace. It's quiet violence. The next morning, I woke up early. No alarms, no messages, no one waiting for me to explain myself. I ordered coffee by the sea and wrote in a journal I'd bought months ago but never opened. Day 1, I don't feel guilty yet. Maybe I should, but I don't. I spent the day swimming, reading, wandering. For the first time in forever, I didn't check my phone. I didn't have to perform being okay. That night, I posted a photo. A quiet beach, sunset bleeding into the horizon. The caption read, "Sometimes you have to choose yourself, and that's okay." I didn't tag anyone. I didn't owe anyone context. Back home, the wedding was happening. I imagined my family gathered, my sister in her dress, my father giving speeches, my mother greeting guests with forced smiles. I could almost hear the whispers. Grace didn't show up. She's selfish. She embarrassed her parents. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was selfish. But for once, being selfish felt like breathing. 2 days passed before I turned my phone on. 147 messages. 38 missed calls. 12 voicemails. The first few were predictable. This is unacceptable. You better come home. You've ruined everything. Then the tone changed. Where are you? We're worried. Please, Grace. Call us. By the end of the list, the messages had turned into silence. I called Priya instead. How does it feel? She asked. Strange, I said. Like I'm free, but floating. That's normal. Freedom always feels a little lonely at first. A week later, I turned on my phone again. Only one new message from my mother. We're sorry. Please come home. The guilt crept in again, slow and familiar. It's a strange thing. Guilt, it makes you forget who hurt who first. I sat with it for a long time, listening to the waves crash outside. Then I did what I'd promised myself I'd do. I called my therapist, Dr. Patel. They want me to come home, I said. I don't know how to respond. She paused, the kind of pause that feels like a mirror. You don't owe them immediate reconciliation. You owe yourself honesty. What do you want? I thought about it. About going back. About seeing their faces. About pretending this hadn't happened. I want things to change, I said quietly. Then don't go back to who you were before, she said. Go back only if you can stay yourself. The next morning, I called my mother. "Grace," she whispered. Her voice sounded small, fragile. "Hi, Mom." She started crying. "We shouldn't have done that. Your father went too far." "I went too far." I didn't cry. My voice stayed steady. "No, you shouldn't have. But I'm willing to talk. When I come home, things need to change. I need to be treated with respect. No more ultimatums." There was a pause. Then, softly, "Okay, we can talk about that." It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a start. That evening, I watched the sun melt into the sea again, same as the first night. But this time, it didn't feel like escape. It felt like arrival. I'd spent my whole life waiting for their approval. And somewhere between leaving and landing, I realized I didn't need it anymore. I could go home, but I wouldn't be the same. I wouldn't be quiet. I wouldn't shrink. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of being the difficult one. The airport felt smaller this time. Or maybe I just felt larger. Not in size, but in presence, like I finally took up the space I'd been trained to surrender. When I stepped off the plane, the air was colder, heavier. November had settled in, gray and unwelcoming. My carry-on felt light. Most of what I owned was still in storage. Most of what I was stayed behind on that island, buried under sun and salt. Mom was waiting by the arrivals gate. No flowers, no fake smiles. Just her, clutching her purse like a lifeline. We didn't hug right away. We just stood there, two people who used to know each other. Then she took a step forward and said, "You look different." "I am," I said. She nodded, eyes glistening, and whispered, "Good." The house looked the same. Too clean. Too quiet. Like no one had dared disturb the memory of what happened. My father was in his study, of course he was. The door was open, the TV on mute. He didn't look up when I walked in. "So," he said, "you're back." "I came to talk," I said. He turned off the TV. "Talk then." I took a deep breath. "What you did, locking me out, cutting me off, that wasn't love. That was control. And I'm not here to beg for forgiveness. I'm here because I'm willing to have a relationship, but only if it's one built on respect." He stared at me for a long time, jaw tight. The silence between us was thick, the kind that used to make me shrink. But this time, I didn't. "Finally," he said. "You embarrass this family." I smiled slightly. "No. I embarrassed your illusion of control." His eyes narrowed, but I saw it, the flicker of something that wasn't anger. Maybe recognition. Maybe fear. I turned to leave. "If you want to talk again, you know where to find me. But next time, it won't be in this house." And I walked out. That night, I stayed at a small apartment downtown, a place Priya helped me find. It smelled like new paint and cheap furniture, but it was mine. I unpacked one box, made tea, and sat by the window watching the city lights. It wasn't peaceful like the ocean, but it was real. I opened my journal again. Day 47. Coming home doesn't mean going back. Weeks passed. My father didn't call, but my mother visited. Sometimes she brought groceries, sometimes she just sat with me in silence. She never pushed. One night, over dinner, she said, "You know, when you left, your father didn't eat for 3 days." I looked up surprised. "That's not my responsibility anymore." She smiled faintly. "I know. I just wanted you to know he felt it." For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. Just sad. Not for what I lost, but for what they never learned to give. A month later, my father called. His voice was rough, older somehow. "Grace, your mother says you're doing well." "I am," I said. "I've been thinking." "About what?" "About what you said. Respect." "Maybe you're right." I didn't say anything. Just waited. "I can't promise I'll change overnight," he said finally. "But I want to try." It wasn't much. But it was more than I ever thought I'd get. A year later, I went back to the Maldives, not to escape this time, but to celebrate. 1 year of boundaries. 1 year of peace. I sat in the same spot on the sand where I'd cried that first night and wrote my final entry in the journal. Day 365. I'm not angry anymore. Just free. I used to think freedom meant leaving. Now I know it means staying without losing yourself. The waves came in slow, soft, forgiving. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was running. I felt like I had finally arrived.